So I just talked about one bad Mick Garris Stephen King movie, and I'm going to talk about the other one, Riding the Bullet. And Riding the Bullet I had not seen before. I honestly had not even heard of this one. And I don't know if it was a book first or not, like Sleepwalkers wasn't. Because I haven't read any Stephen King books actually. But Riding the Bullet is just like Sleepwalkers, it is a really what the fuck movie, but this one is just so much less entertaining. Like Sleepwalkers is just so interesting and just how incredibly goofy and incredibly over the top that movie is. Like whenever somebody gets stabbed with a freaking corn cob, like stuff like that is what makes Sleepwalkers such a fascinatingly bad movie. And then we got Riding the Bullet, which is not very fascinating. It's just a weird mess. And like I said, Mick Garris directed this one too, and tonally it's just so much different than Sleepwalkers. Sleepwalkers was so overly silly, and this does have some overly silly moments, but it never packs the same punch for me. It just doesn't feel like it's taking itself as silly as like Sleepwalkers or something is. And I didn't really care for this one at all in just terms of like, it was very uninteresting. The basic story, if I can decipher it, is that this character Alan has a stroke, and his mother had a stroke. I dropped my notes. That's why I wasn't able to say it right. This character Alan's mother has a stroke. So he's going to go visit her, and then we get all these flashbacks to Alan as a kid with his father, with the ride the Bullet, like the ride called the Bullet that he was going to ride, but then he was scared to do, and he keeps encountering this kind of demon thing, while he keeps having these random dreams or nightmares or flashbacks. Sometimes you can't tell which one it is. There's a lot of random shit in this that just doesn't add up at all. It feels very disjointed in a lot of ways. Like, this story goes back and forth so much between his dreams and his nightmares and then his flashbacks. But then it keeps going to current time, and then random stuff starts happening where it's like he'll meet this random hippie that he rides with for a while, and then he meets David Arquette, who's who's already dead, and they do like a Sixth Sense kind of thing in the movie where it's like, oh, he's like, is he already dead? Like, I don't, like, I didn't even understand that, and I feel stupid for not paying attention enough, but I was like, what? Like, what's this trying to do? It just has so many things about it that's just so random, and it just doesn't even, like, there's a talking crow in this movie randomly where it's just like, what the fuck are you looking at? Like, it says that to Alan, and it's like, what? Why? Like, I don't get why they, like, stuff like that, I don't get, but again, I don't get it, but it's not entertaining like Sleepwalkers was. And then there's random things like where he meets like Cliff Robertson's character, and Cliff Robertson, the first thing he does whenever he gets in the car with him is Cliff Robertson scratches his sack, like he grabs his jeans and just starts scratching his nuts. What? Why? Like, it purposefully made a point to show him doing that. Like, why? What's the point of that? Like, that's so. First of all, that's just weird to watch, and secondly, why? Just why at all in the first place? It just, and then there's a scene where like Alan sees his mom in the hospital in like a nightmare, and she makes a monkey kind of noise, like rah, rah, like just a random noise, and it's again just so what the fuck? Like, it just doesn't. Like I said, again, not as entertaining as Sleepwalkers. And then Alan might have a split personality too. Like all this is just so much overkill. And he keeps hallucinating about his mother, because she had the stroke. He keeps hallucinating things about her, about David Arquette's character about and meeting all these random people like that hippie and D. Cliff Robertson, and just this evil guy who keeps connecting to him in his dreams or his flashbacks. All this stuff is just so much overkill in this movie, and it's just so random. And it just... And then there's a random scene where it's just... Another random scene where David Arquette's character, George Staub, there's a movie within this movie where it's like it shows a couple seconds of a movie called Riding the Bullet, and it has David Arquette's character George, and it's just so out there. So like, what is the point in this? It literally adds nothing to any of the scenes. It just shows that, and then it randomly goes away, and then just so random. Like, it doesn't... It's so convoluted, but it never, like, even gains anything, like, to connect anything back at the end. And... God, and then, like, he spends the whole movie trying to get to his mom, who has a stroke. And he has all these hallucinations about her, and all his dreams and nightmares and flashbacks. And then he meets her, finally, at the end. And then there's so many cuts to where he thinks something's going to happen, but then it cuts back to where he hasn't done anything yet. And then he finally sees his mom, and then she dies. And it's just like, it's just a wah-wah moment, because it's like, wow, you spent the whole movie to have this happen, but then she just dies. And then I was just like, well, what? Like, and I don't even remember the ending now. And I watched it like a week ago. Like, besides that, I don't even remember what happened. And I don't feel dumb for forgetting it, because this movie is really, really incredibly forgettable, because I had to write notes about this, because it's so random that it makes no sense, so it wouldn't connect anything, but it's not entertainingly bad. It's just bad and convoluted, and just not interesting at all. It's just so random, so strange. It does some of that silly humor like Sleepwalkers, but it's not funny. It's not funny bad. It's just really, really bad. It's definitely one of the worst Stephen King movies I've watched. I really didn't enjoy this. I'm glad I wrote notes down, because if I didn't, I would have forgotten half of this crap, because I saw it a week ago. But it was an interesting watch, but it wasn't very interesting as a whole, like the movie. Because, like I said, I had to write notes down to remember half of this stuff, because it's just so random. So many random things. So overall, I really didn't like it. The movie was just a really random mess.